Hi, it's Phil Stacy, Executive Sports Editor at the Salem News, alongside Matt Williams, Assistant Sports Editor. Just the two of us today for another Salem News Sports podcast, our Bandied About podcast. Willie, how are you this Friday morning?
Great, great. Ready
Excellent.
to analyze some brackets. This is like the pirate ship of analyzing brackets, right? We don't have the official MIAA stamp, like some other outlets, but that's okay.
Hey, you know what? We've been renegades for a long time. That's
That's
fine.
right. Hang the skull and crossbones high.
Yes. We're missing Nick Giannino today. He is out on assignment, so kudos to him and his what he's doing. But we will soldier on here. We're going to focus basically on our Salem News area. So, Willie, let's start. We are in the thick of the playoffs here. We started the week with, I think it was 30 teams, non-football, and we're down to, I think, 10 at this point. So, just through the first, let's say, almost a week of tournament play here, what has stood out to you? What's been surprising? What's been shocking? What have you seen?
I don't know if anything's really shocking at this stage. I mean, it's all become very predictable in this format that we're in here. I mean, I think I think when I look at the girls soccer, for instance, I'm not sure any team has benefited from this current statewide power ranking situation like Ipswich, which is probably not what the viewers out there expected to hear. The Tigers didn't make the tournament from 2013 until 2020, 7 years in a row out. And even though they haven't finished 500, they've been well inside the top 30 of the power rankings every year, and they've won a game in the tournament every year. So that really is what you were looking to do with those small schools, the like-size school angle, so nobody has made as much progress as them, and now Saturday, they get to face their arch rivals from Hamilton Wenham in the
Right?
tournament. It's going to be a tough task. The Generals are undefeated, haven't lost a regular season game in more than 2 years. And, it's going to be a big stage over there at Gordon College. And I think it's going to be an interesting game. Certainly, I would say Hamilton Wenham is a heavy favorite, but that's okay. If you're Hamilton Wenham, interestingly, when they won the state title in 2021, they also faced Ipswich in the second round. So maybe there's a little bit of kismet there for them. Some stuff lining up. But I think that's interesting. A little school like Ipswich has made a lot of progress. That's one team that has really benefited from this format.
Well, how many people that follow our sports pages do you think would know the answer to, of all the teams in our region, what school has the most teams still left in the state tournament? And that would be Ipswich, because you have the girls' soccer, you have the volleyball, which is the three-time defending Division Four state champions. They're still alive, very much alive as the number two seed in the state quarterfinals. And you have the field hockey team, which is coming off of probably the biggest upset, at least for us, I think, so far in this tournament, when they defeated Manchester Essex in a shootout the other night. Manchester Essex, the Cape Ann League Baker champions, they defeated Ipswich twice during the regular season, albeit both 1-0 scores. And the other night in Manchester, behind goaltender Abby Allen, she's remarkable, junior captain. She had over 200 saves last year. This year, it's not quite as many, but she's still making a ton. She had 22 the other night in the regulation and the two overtime periods. And then they get a goal from Ava McCarthy, who's a freshman in the shootout. And I am going to completely butcher the last name here of Ipswich's second goal scorer. It was hold on, I gotta look it up here and see if I can pronounce it phonetically. It is a German last name that I am gonna. It probably has three or four different ways that I could mess this up here, but um, it was Sophie Johannecht. I believe that is the right way to say it. She also scored in in the shootout, and Ipswich won that 2-0. So great win for them. They got to go out to Frontier Regional, which is I think about 2 hours and 15 minutes away, um, for their Division Four quarterfinal tomorrow. So that's so yeah. To kind of reiterate what you were saying, it's been a really nice fall for Ipswich, and it has been since we've had this tournament start, I think.
Yeah, Masco with three teams left as well if we count football, but everybody else is down. Although Manchester Essex also at the time of this recording has three if we count football. So we should give a small nod to our friends up north, even though they're out on assignment today. But
Yep.
yeah, that was quite the shootout the other day up there. Really one of the most exciting, probably the most exciting tournament game that we've had
Yeah.
so far. I mean, I know there's been some overtime, Marblehead boys soccer, two overtime games, the girls soccer double overtime for Marblehead, regular overtime for Danvers.
Well, what
A
about that
couple.
crazy field hockey game I did the other day in Beverly?
Right, right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah,
Overtime
I mean,
and
if
incorrectly
anybody didn't have a
applied.
chance to see this or hear about it or whatnot, it was crazy. Beverly hosted Arlington. First ever night playoff game under the lights for any sport over at 40 Field in Beverly. Of course, they just got lights a few weeks back there, and it's tied 1-1 after regulation. They go to a 10 minutes. I still call it sudden death. I think now it's probably called sudden victory overtime, where they reduce the number of players in the field to 7-on-7, which is interesting in and of itself. That was how they played during that COVID season, that fall of 2020, when they started play in what was it, late October, early November. I can't even remember now. Um, but neither team scored there. No, I don't pretend to know every facet and every rule that happens in field hockey, but I knew that there was, you play two overtimes. It's that way in soccer. It's that way in hockey. Before you go to a shootout, the two game officials conferred and they said, no, we're going right to a shootout. So they play a shootout. Beverly wins. They're celebrating, going crazy. The two teams are literally in line to shake hands. Good game, good game, good game. When, well, actually, we made a mistake. There should have been a second 10-minute overtime period played. Now, do you play by the rules as they were stated, or is it, hey, we made a mistake, but Beverly won in the shootout, so we got to give them the win? They played by the rules, as I guess they should have. We have to confirm with MIA people. I thought the Beverly side handled themselves with a lot of class and dignity that I think a lot of coaches maybe wouldn't have. But they came back and they won on a Mads LeBlanc goal in that second overtime. So I guess justice did prevail, but just kind of crazy. And I think you made an excellent point. I saw you tweet out that there should be a laminated sheet that lists the overtime procedures at any MIA game so that certainly the officials and the coaches and the players are aware this is what will happen if we are tied and need to go to extra time. So there's no confusion. It's very clear and it's right there in black and white. So you don't have mishaps like this. I just thought it was a little bit embarrassing that the two game officials didn't know what the rules were in a playoff game.
It's more than a little bit embarrassing. I mean, I went to my soccer game on Wednesday, and I saw one of the officials that I know very well, and he takes me over to his car and he pulls out of the back of his Jeep the rules. He says, "See, I got them printed out. I'm ready." you know. Somebody at the MIA let us know that the schools had told, the referees had told to print it out. It's like, okay, you told them. Is it a rule? Well, okay, they didn't, clearly. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
That's nice that you told them, but what are you going to do about it? I go back to the Newburyport tennis thing that
Yeah.
they screwed up last spring.
Yep.
Now, supposedly that had to stand because the teams shook hands. And in tennis parlance, shaking hands is like, knocking your king over in chess, right?
Or like in golf, signing your card and like, hey,
Yeah. I
you,
mean, the Beverly girls were shaking hands. Does that so the Arlington kids shook hands? Does that mean the game is
no,
over
they did.
then? What why?
Technically, they didn't. They lined up to, and they were ready to,
Oh, so they didn't actually
and they
knock
didn't
sticks to
actually
well.
break bread, so to speak. But
Okay.
but but
So
it
there
was, it was as close to winning the Masters as a 2-inch putt. Let's
So,
put it
so
that way.
technically there is consistency then if they didn't
Yeah.
actually begin the act of the handshaking. But I just think it's crazy. And it puts the coach in an impossible position because the coach is saying like, Mr. Official, Mrs. Official, Madam Official, I don't know if it was a man or woman, it doesn't matter, but it's like, I think you might be wrong. And if the official is insistent, the coach doesn't want to have a fit because they're trying to show decorum, stay calm, they don't want to get their team all out of sorts. You don't want to have a fit and then have a call go against you in overtime. So like as a coach, even if you know you're right, there's really only so much you can do
Yeah,
if
right.
the official is insistent that they're right. And so the whole thing, it just I feel really bad for the coach because it's so awkward. Like how do you express that you're right when these officials are like, and some of them are on a hair trigger. They don't want to be questioned at all.
No.
I just that's such an awkward spot, and I gotta really commend Danielle for the way she handled it and was able to I know a lot of coaches in that situation that would have lost their mind. And so kudos to her.
Well, and I thought this was ironic too because I was standing near them watching the game behind the scores table. But I think as is the case a lot of times when you are an athletic director, in this case Ryan Wood, the Beverly athletic director, is watching the game with his counterpart from Arlington, and I don't know his name, but he seemed like a nice fellow. I had a chance to talk to him. They're watching this game unfold. That can be a little bit awkward when the two of you are like, what do we do now? And, of course, Beverly wants to celebrate the win, and Arlington is hoping to get reversed. So, I think from for somebody without a stake in what happened, as a neutral observer, it was good to see that, there were no hard feelings and calmness prevailed and whatnot. But it's just a bad look, to have something like this where it really could have. I mean, what if Arlington had won? What if Arlington had scored in the second overtime? Or if it had gone scoreless again, they would have had to play another shootout. Say Arlington wins there. What do you say
Right.
to those Beverly kids that have already won and celebrate? I mean, it's just, yeah, we're all human. We all make mistakes. I get it. I make 100 a day. Just ask my wife. But there are mistakes, and then there are, yeah, like, what are you doing?
I
Yes,
mean, this stuff is preventable. This stuff is preventable very easily. I mean, again, like, people don't like to hear it, but like if you can print out the QR code to get money from grandma, you can print out the rules. I
I
mean, it's
agree.
that simple. And
Let me
and
ask you about another
again,
subject here that was brought up to me last night at a non-tournament game. I was at a non-playoff football game, and it was by a coach who wasn't even involved in the game last night. Now, that was I mean, normally we think of these non-playoff games as like, they don't mean much. The kids don't care, blah, blah, blah. I saw a pretty good game last night. You saw a pretty good game last night.
yep.
Um, Salem loses by a point to Pentucket. Wild back and forth shootout. Pentucket quarterback Stephen Hopper throws for almost 300 yards. Two of his receivers go for over 100. Rocco Ryan with 200 yards, 208 yards rushing for Salem, had four total touchdowns. Salem scores with 2 seconds left, goes for two in the win and doesn't get it. So, really good game. I thought both teams played great. Having said that, I was speaking with a coach there who did not coach in the game, coaches another sport. And he made the point, and I thought this was a great point. I know we've talked about this before, but if there's a downside to the power rankings, I think the conference, the Northeastern Conference, is really in a tough spot in a lot of the boys' sports because the leagues may not be, they're not bad. It's not Greater Boston League like people look at it like, oh man, this is like, you know, Lynn English basketball went whatever it was, 19-1 last year, and I don't even think they got a home game. Or did they have a playing game? Was it last year? Or
The girls, the boys, I think were pretty high seed, but the
okay, so it was the
girls,
girls.
but there's examples like that for sure.
Yeah, and it was more like no matter what we do, because we're forced to play, so, everybody in our league, and there are obviously good teams and bad teams, and the league overall is not that strong. We're penalized by the power rankings, and then other teams outside the league won't play us because it won't help them get points that they want to raise their own standing and all. And it really got me thinking, I'm thinking about it during the football game, and I'm thinking about it driving home, and I'm like, geez, you're really between a rock and a hard place if you can't better your own standing before you even go into the season, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
I do. I mean, I think some of that is some of these other coaches are just mistaken. Uh, if they think their power rank is going to get hurt by playing a Northeast Conference team, I think there's a little bit of hubris in that. There's a little bit of just reputation, like college football, like, oh, I got to play a team from the SEC. Oh, I got to play a team from the mighty MVC. I mean, the
Yeah.
Middlesex League isn't what it used to be. I think it's really a case by case. I mean, I really have to look at this particular sport because I do think that, the conference has pretty good. I mean, the top teams in the conference across their different sports have pretty good power rankings in all the different sports, and the bottom teams don't. And I think that's, kind of how that's supposed to be. I mean, none of the volleyball teams seem to have any trouble filling their schedules.
No, I
The
tend to see it more in the
soccer.
boys' sports, I think. Like I know we still have
Yeah.
Masco
I mean,
playing.
football.
Masco's still playing soccer. As you said, the football. What do we have? Marblehead was sixth. Uh, Swampscott was what was Swampscott seed? Fourth?
Yeah, both top 10 teams in the power rankings, Marblehead and Masco. So they did a good job with whatever they were supposed to do schedule wise. And then and some of the other teams didn't have good seasons. Peabody, I know, had their boys soccer was under 500, but they were able to schedule Xaverian. They scheduled one of the Newton teams to try to beef that up. So I mean, I think it's kind of, people will say that about the conference, but I don't think it's necessarily true. And I wonder if the coaches that are saying that, you know, just don't want to play the game for whatever reason and are trying to be polite about it, to
No,
be honest. Like,
uh, I think in this case it might have been like, hey, we're willing to play whoever we can play, and they were being rebuffed by other opponents. So
yeah, but again, like that opponent maybe just didn't want to play and pulled out the NEC thing to try to be polite, like,
yeah,
your league, instead of, that could be. Or that opponent again, like maybe doesn't watch this podcast and doesn't fully grasp how the rankings work. I mean, I still hear from coaches like, "Oh, should I be playing a Division 1 team or does that matter?" And it's like, no, no, it doesn't. It hasn't for almost 8 years now. They changed that. You just want to play good teams. The division plays no factor in it. So
right.
there's a lot of people out there that don't fully grasp the whole thing. I mean, I know one of our teams. I'll try to be as vague as possible, but they have a kid on staff that went to a very, very prestigious engineering school, and he tried to develop a formula to simulate all the scores to try to figure out who their opponent was going to be. And they ended up spent some time on film watching a different team than the one they ended up playing. So these things are hard to predict, and not everybody fully gets them.
No, no, that's difficult to try to project that way. Well, as I said, we still have 10 teams left. You mentioned Hamilton Wenham and Ipswich, girls soccer taking on each other. You have Masconomet playing Saturday afternoon in a second round game, is it?
That's right.
And Danvers is also playing. Can you just touch on those two for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, Danvers big game Friday night against Newburyport. I think it's an excellent game. Danvers didn't exactly play great. They got a lot of injuries right now. They're getting kind of thin, but again, as we've said a million times, when you have Georgia Prouty sometimes she just makes a play and you win a
Two-time
game.
conference
And
player of the year.
yeah, so you got to watch out for that. And then Masco is just kind of going great guns, cruising along. They are an experienced team at every level. They got kids that have played in, 4, 5, 6, 7 tournament games. They know how to play at this time of the year, and it's really just a matter of making sure they finish
And
and
did we
and
figure out
then
where they're playing yet? Do we know if
it is at Danvers. That is confirmed.
Danvers High School?
So they're a little bit nomadic, which, again, as we've said, hey, that's worked wonders for Hamilton Wenham in the past. They've won state titles in the tennis without a home field, so maybe that works out for Masco, the girls. But it's only going to get more interesting as they get deeper and deeper into the postseason as we move along here.
We mentioned Ipswich field hockey. They're in a Division Four quarterfinal at Frontier Regional tomorrow. Their volleyball team's also in the quarterfinals. They are hosting East Bridgewater tonight, Friday, as we speak, and also Bishop Fenwick volleyball. They had a nice win the other day, a nice upset win. So they are in the quarterfinals, Division Three. They're playing at Wayland tonight. So good luck to them.
Yeah, went down to Nipmuc, I think it was, right? And
Yep.
and won the first two sets, took control and came home with a victory. So that's great. I mean, I noticed Cardinal Spellman, one of the teams that they played a bunch, is on the other side of the bracket, is a high seed doing very well. So I wouldn't overlook Fenwick. They've had a great season. We've kind of had them on the back burner of our volleyball talk all year. We've mentioned like, hey, they're a team that can make a run, and
Yeah.
here they are making us look like we know what we're talking about.
Hamilton Wenham on the boys' side, boys soccer, they play East Boston later today, Friday. East Boston team, I believe, is the number four seed, very strong. But Hamilton Wenham coming off of a 7-1 win over Leicester, flexing their muscles a little bit. I think they kick off today, East Boston Stadium. So nice chance for the Generals to move into the quarterfinals. Two games tomorrow. I think the late game is Masconomet at West Springfield. Of course, Masconomet always strong under Coach Jared Scarpacci, and they'll be looking to come home from a win out in the western part of the state. And then you have St. John's Prep. They have a home game. They're the number four seed. They've only lost once all season, Willie. They're 14-1-4. As the four seed, they're going to be taking on Framingham, a Framingham team that just nipped Arlington in its opener 2-1. Although the Prep only won, I shouldn't say only, but Prep also had a one-goal win against Acton Boxborough. So I guess anything could happen Saturday morning, 11 a.m. at St. John's Prep. So
Yeah, that game was the opening round game a little closer than little close for comfort there. So
yeah. But I
we'll
don't
see.
think unexpected in the sense that, when I was over at the prepper last month and talking to a longtime head coach there, Dave Crowley said he really believes that the soccer tournament is the hardest to win because so many factors can affect the game, whether it's weather, whether it's a hot goalie, whether it's a team that's really trying not to score and packs it in defensively and just wants to get to a shootout, and you can't penetrate the defense. Um, so, that wasn't the case in a 3-2 game, obviously, but could have been first game jitters.
No,
Uh,
it's tough. Soccer is tough.
yeah,
Soccer is
soccer's
one of the
difficult.
tough ones for sure.
All right, let's get to our football here. The football playoffs start tonight as we record this. It's Friday night. Let's start with Division One, and we'll go down from there. I don't think there needs to be a lot of in-depth analysis into this St. John's Prep Attleboro game. This is not a question of if St. John's Prep wins, it's by how much and when their backups get into the game. And Willie, you and I have certainly talked about this off air, but wow, did they get a good bracket? Their half of the bracket looks very good for St. John's. Yes, they're the number one seed, but the teams that I would say, geez, they could possibly pose a problem for the Eagles at some point all seem to be on that other half of the bracket, whether you're talking Xaverian, whether you're talking Springfield, whether you're talking BC High. And of course, nothing's a given, but it certainly looks like a good road for St. John's Prep.
It does. I mean, I think, we'll talk more about next week about this Easton kid from Methuen, but I don't know that Methuen can stop St. John's. And then we'll see about Needham. I mean, you hear good things, but maybe they have a puncher's chance. But St. John's aggregate score in these playoffs since the statewide format became a thing against public schools is pretty ridiculous. So it's kind of like, okay, prove it to me,
Yeah.
type of thing when it comes to them. I want to say it's like, I mean, in the first round, I did it out last night. It's 39-6, and I don't really think it gets much better for the public schools after that. I mean, and that's just a reality. I'm not trying to make this a public-private thing. I'm just saying, St. John's has played some really good teams in the second round, third round, your Andovers, and teams like your Lemonsters, teams like that, and they've really, had their way with them in recent years, which, obviously we know that's not always an indicator of future success, but if you're going by history at all, yeah, I mean, the only teams that have kept it close with the prep lately are Xaverian and Springfield, and they're on the other side. And I
Yeah.
guess you have to have a little bit of respect for Central Catholic too.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yes. Yes.
they did play a one score game in September, and they were the last team from outside the Catholic Conference to beat the Prep in the playoffs, I believe. So there is a little bit there. You can't overlook them.
40th ever football playoff game tonight for St. John's Prep, by far and away the most. Division two for Peabody, it's their 16th, and they'll be looking for their seventh all-time playoff win when they go to Winchester to play there. Um, what is interesting about this game to you, Willie? I mean, you saw Peabody beat Winchester back in their second game of the season, but Winchester's been rolling ever since then. They're 6-2. Their only other loss, I think, was a 1 point loss to Reading. Reading's undefeated. They're averaging more than 35 points a game. What can this Peabody team do that just snapped a three-game losing streak do to beat them again?
Well, I just can't make mistakes. I mean, the type of mistakes that have cost them games, big plays, turnovers, and bad special teams. I mean, you can't have that, right? And they didn't have that the first time around. And they had a lot of that against Masco and Marblehead and Danvers. So, it's just kind of a simple game when you break it down that way. I mean, if you make the other team drive 80 yards, instead of giving them 60 in one play, if you or fumbling the ball and making them only go 20, you're gonna have a better chance to win the game, right? I mean, it kind of comes down to that. Peabody had great success throwing the ball against Winchester the first time around. Now,
Yeah.
a couple of their receivers that made big plays in that game are going to be out. So that makes a big difference. But, you wonder, does Winchester change up its game plan, to try to make Peabody run the ball instead? It's always interesting the second time. This is maybe. I mean, I'm trying to think. I can't think of another instance where Peabody has played the same team twice in one season in football. Certainly not in recent years. So I believe it's the first time that it's happened, with Mark Betancourt as the head coach, and it might be one of the first times in the whole history. So you don't know, like I think back to Patriots Rams 2001. The first game, all they did was blitz, and then the second
Yeah.
game they decided not to blitz. So, like, how are Betts and Wally Dembowski going to handle this? Do you just line up and play and run your stuff and hope that you're good, or do you really go into the bag of tricks and try to change things up from the first time? I mean, I can make an argument philosophically for both of those ideas. So I think that's definitely like an interesting wrinkle that we don't see too often at this level. I mean, at least with these two teams, we've seen it plenty of times with your Marble, you Prep Zavarian last year, and
Yeah.
Fenwick St. Mary's, I think, played in the playoffs one year, and then again on Thanksgiving, and a lot of South Shore teams have done it. I mean, it's far from unprecedented, but I do think where it's new for Peabody, the question is like, how are they going to handle it?
Well, you mentioned some of their receivers being out. I know they'll certainly miss Dorland Morrell. He's been a big part of that receiving core for Peabody. And I think you're right that when they had success last weekend against Beverly in the second half, it was using the run to set up the pass.
For sure, yeah.
So yeah, they're going to need the two Santos boys, Kaio and Gabe, to get on track, and the quarterback Luke Maglione. He's been effective running the ball too. I think the three of them have combined for a dozen touchdowns. So, um, uh, I think with a lot of football at this level of playoffs, a lot depends on the line, holding blocks, opening holes, and those guys finding the time and the space to run through those holes and make something happen. If they can move the chains, and I really think it's important for them to get out to a lead and force Winchester to come back rather than vice versa.
I
Uh,
don't think they've had a lead at halftime since the Winchester game, maybe. I'm trying to think. The classical game they were down 14-0, and I don't remember if they got ahead by halftime or not, but I mean they haven't led at halftime since then anyway. So that's 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, I do expect a fourth quarter type of situation. I mean, Peabody had to get the defensive stop to beat Winchester. Winchester beat Masco in the last minute. They had a one-pointer with Reading that came down the last drive. And of course, Maglione has been showing off his clutch gene with the
yeah.
go-ahead touchdown passes the last 2 weeks in the last 2 minutes. Now, the Danvers one didn't hold up, but still. So these are both teams that are comfortable in the clutch that have played tight games in the fourth quarter. I don't think either team is going to be feeling the pressure if it comes down to that. I mean, both these teams are experienced in tight games in the fourth quarter.
Could we be seeing an upset in Division Three when Masconomet hosts Milford? And I ask that because on paper, you look at the records, Masconomet's 6-2, Milford's 3-5. Hey, this is a game that Masco should win. But then when you dive a little deeper and you see that Milford has played King Philip, Leominster, Franklin. I think those three teams have combined two losses, all favored to do very well in the postseason here. Could this be I wouldn't say a trap game because I'm sure the Masconomet coaches certainly are aware of how good Milford is, but a Milford team that is traditionally has tough kids, a good program. Could this be an upset potentially?
Yeah, I mean, I think 8-9 is always going to be the tightest game, right? I mean, that's kind of just generally how that goes. I would say, Masco is in the interesting place of coming off a bye. They're the only team going into the playoffs off a bye. So is that good? Is that bad? I mean, I tend to think after 8 games, a bye is going to be more rest than rust.
Yeah.
But they did suffer, only their second loss, coming out of that bye. So, like, how do the kids respond to that? Have they gotten flat, or are they now getting back up? I mean, that's really kind of the teller here is how are they going to come out? They
How's
haven't
that
played.
defense going to react? I mean, I
Yeah,
know in your story today, you mentioned a couple of the key guys like Cash Kaniski and Lucas Magnifico. If they get Davis DeLutis back there, he'll help out there. Of course, Jack Fabiano, who we know as the lead back, the bell cow guy, over 1,000 yards rushing, 16 touchdowns. He's valuable on defense as well. Um, I think that the Masconomet defense is really going to be key to this game. Um, what they can do to hold ground. It's still warm enough where that grass field isn't going to be rock hard up at Masco or anything like that. So um, I think if they can contain Milford, that'll almost be more important than what they can do offensively, I feel like.
yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think again, like they just want to establish the run and set up the play fake, and again get a lead, to get some confidence going for sure.
Yep. Marblehead has done very well in the postseason on its home turf. They are again at home tonight, Division Four, round one game against Norwood team that's 4-4, but again plays out of another very good league, Willie, the Tri Valley League. Talk to me a little bit about this defense and how well they've been playing with Brady Salves and Bodie Smith and so on and so forth.
I mean, you look at the statistics. I mean, they've not given up more than one touchdown in a game in 6 consecutive weeks. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's a pretty good recipe for success. And that's coming off of, losing the 2 games to begin the season. They've won 6 in a row. They're holding opponents out of the end zone. They're making them drive the field. That they play sideline to sideline very very well. They defend the pass just as well as they defend the run. I mean, they shut down Danvers' running attack. They shut down Masco's running attack. I mean, those are the two best running attacks that you're going to see around here. So that certainly bodes well for their success. They're a team that's played very very well at home over the years in the playoffs. I think 14-3 all time in the playoffs at Piper Field. So that certainly is another check mark in Marblehead's favor. But you never know. I mean, Norwood is a tough South Shore team, and the type of team that has picked off Marblehead at times in the past. I mean, one of their only first round loss, I think, was to Drake it, which was a heavy underdog coming in, but kind of a similar toughness. So it's certainly not impossible, but given the way Marblehead's playing, I do like their chances.
And we've talked about the two quarterback system that they used before with the captain Colt Wales and junior Finn Gallup. They've really settled into a nice groove, alternating series, but with equal amounts of effectiveness. I want to say last week in their game, they only had one incomplete pass among the 16 they attempted.
Yeah, both
Um,
tremendous. And
they're,
what I
they're
like,
completing, I think, combined like 64% of their passes. They've thrown for 13 touchdown passes. And again, like I think in recent weeks we've seen Rylan Golden kind of step up to the forefront as the go-to guy receiving wise. 5 touchdowns, over 350 yards receiving. But they can go to Crew Monaco, they can go to Sam Thompson. They've gone to Keenan Moss has stepped up lately with Cam Quigley kind of reduced to defensive duties. Kieran Moss, an unheralded senior, has come up with some big plays the last couple of weeks. Brady Salves is another kid. We mentioned him on defense, but he's another guy who can catch passes. So for Marblehead, what I find difficult in stopping them offensively is that you literally can't focus on one guy. Whether it's Yandel Garcia running the ball, Wales and Gallup both run very, very well. Bernardo Banis can run at the goal line. Salves is a tough runner. Oscar Galante, had a long run early this year for a touchdown, I remember. There's a lot of guys they can turn to and have success.
yeah, and I think the thing with the quarterbacks too is it allows, the existence of Gallup and how good he is allows Walls to play defense.
Right.
Because if they didn't have a really good backup, they'd say, we're not going to risk our quarterback here. And, Walls is a great safety, good tackler, good in coverage. So that makes their defense better too. And it allows them to more liberally call that quarterback run. There have been times over the years where they have one quarterback and you're nervous and it's like, oh God, like I don't want to, tell this kid to get down, tell him to get to the sidelines because if he gets hurt, it's all over. And not that you want either guy to take chances or be reckless, but they can maybe put their shoulder down and get those extra yards because they know like, well, if I have to miss a couple snaps, the other guy's really, really good and can come in for me. So that's really been a weapon for them.
All right, let's move over to Division Five quickly. I give all the kudos in the world to that coaching staff and the players in Danvers for getting into the playoffs. I was not sure that they were going to have enough to get in this year. I mean, it's such a young team, so much turnover, so many new starters or first year varsity guys, but they're in. The reward, they got to go down to Foxborough to play the defending state champs. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Foxborough lost their first three and they've won five in a row. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. One of the state's all-time legendary coaches and Jack Martinelli. They're used to putting up a ton of points. We know Danvers keeps things really simple in that double wing. They rely a ton on Owen Shanbar, um, both running the football and when they do go to the air. What can the Falcons do to keep this game close? Because I have to imagine they're big underdogs going in.
Just play their game, shorten the game, right? Put long drives together. Keep possession, keep the clock moving. That's kind of how they kept it close against Reading and Tewksbury, and I think that'll be the formula once again on the road against the Warriors.
Okay. Bishop Fenwick is also in Division Five, as we know. They have a home game as the number five seed. Great 7-1 regular season for them. Their only loss down at Bishop Thean. They're taking on a Norton team that has a pretty good dual threat, and Ethan Rodriguez, a quarterback who gets it done with his legs and his arms, Willie. But having said that, Fenwick is going to be chomping at the bit to get back to the postseason, having been banned from MIA postseason play a year ago. Um, what do you expect from this game tonight?
Be close. I mean, I just think Fenwick has so many weapons that they can deploy in so many different ways that they just are really, really hard team to defend.
Without any eye-popping stats either. I mean, they spread it around too.
Exactly, exactly. And that means everybody's fresh too. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like Dylan Patterulli hasn't taken as many hits as Jack Fabiano. Neither has Ty Connolly. So,
right.
they're ready to sort of be unleashed. There's no reason to think that neither one of them could handle 20 touches in a game if they had to.
Oh, and I
So
like the fact too that all their receivers are all in that general range of, 9, 10 catches on the year, 150 yards receiving, whether it's Connolly you mentioned, it's Odin Guerin, it's Jesse Timpson who's really come on as of late, even Lincoln Dugan, one of the
Lincoln Dugan, yeah,
captains.
is another one. Yeah, exactly.
And Patterelli. Patterelli, is another guy who can catch the ball in the backfield.
Yeah, all their backs can shift. All their backs can stay in the backfield, can run routes out of the backfield, can shift over to the slot or the wing. I mean, it's just a really really tough offense to defend, and I think Clifford does a really good job of getting the ball where it's supposed to be, reading the defense and whatnot. So it's really just a matter of whether their line can hold up. I think, the one team that gave them trouble was Fian, and they had an injury on the line early in that game, and they were kind of outsized and outmuscled a little bit. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's really going to happen to them in Division Five, with the possible exception of Foxborough if they get that far. So we'll see. But again, like Fenwick is certainly historically one of the most experienced playoff teams that we have. Certainly, it's got to be at this moment in time the most experienced playoff coaching staff
Oh yeah,
that we
certainly.
have by 8 miles. So I'm sure that Coach Woods and Coach Dugan will have those guys ready to go, but it should be a really good game. I mean, I don't think Norton is really a traditional 12 seed. I think they're better than that. I think this is very similar to the Masco Milford game
Yeah, I could see
in
that.
how
Yeah.
closely matched it is.
All right, so that leaves us with Swampscott in Division Six, and this game is interesting to me, Willie, because this is an anti-Marblehead or Fenwick. They get a lot of guys that pop with stats because they put up a ton of big stats. Um, Henry Butler, the running back, a couple yards shy of 900 for the year with 10 touchdowns. Sophomore John Von Barta, what a revelation he's been at quarterback. Really good freshman year playing lacrosse, but he's taken that athleticism right into the football season. He's completed over 100 passes. He's thrown for just shy of 1,300 yards with 17 touchdowns. All kinds of receivers popping off with Liam Keeney, Joe Marino, Jay Domlowitz, Naklin Harris. Butler can catch the ball in the backfield. Yet they're playing a Bay Path team, which is one of the few undefeated teams in the state. And Swampscott is at home. I have to think they're going to win. But you tell me, what's your breakdown?
I mean, it's a little bit. Bay Path is the only undefeated team in the state that's on the road in the first round, which is a
Huh.
little bit wild. It's a little bit wild, but if you're Swampscott, you just want to take care of business. I mean, Division Six is a pinball. There's a lot of really good teams. I mean, for crying out loud, North Reading is 7-1. We know they're pretty good. They're seeded 13th. How'd you like to be playing them in the first round? That doesn't sound like very much fun.
Yeah,
St.
no,
Mary's team that beat Swampscott and is 7-1 is seated below them somehow. So like every game in this Division Six bracket is going to be crazy. The one thing I will say historically, now Henry Butler is about 100 or so yards short of 1,000 yards
correct.
rushing. Historically, when Swampscott has 1,000 yard rusher, they go to the Super Bowl. I mean, if you look at over the
Alex
course of the
Stone.
years,
Yeah.
this is how it's been for them. Every time they've had one, whether you're talking Dylan January, Xavier Baskin, as you mentioned, Alex Stone. So that's like a good formula for success. When you pass the ball as well as they do, and you have to respect the run, That's tough to handle, and so that's kind of that old Swampscott formula. I mean, the honest to God, the formula hasn't changed all that much in 22 years since they kind of invented it, and it's still working for them.
Yeah. Why change it if it's not broken, I guess.
And the coach, the coaches, the head coach changes, but the staff around and the philosophy stays the same. And, that's a credit to continuity and, the town of Swampscott. I mean, good for them. Like it shows that stability can breed success. And some of these places that always want to blow everything up and have no stability, stability is better, even if there's some lean times in the middle there. It's really a credit to these guys. I mean, with the quarterback last year leaves and you're thinking doom and gloom and they just kind of manufacture a new one and he's the number one passer on the North Shore. I mean,
Yeah.
that says a lot about the structure in place and the belief in that town. It's really remarkable. I mean, Peter Bush is going to be on the short list for Coach of the Year.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Hey, before we go, Willie, let's just touch real quickly. It's coming up on state championship season for our friends in cross country as well. The divisional meets are Saturday. Division one is what? North Beale, Mount Herman. Division two at Fort Devens, and Division three down at Rentham. Anything that we should be looking for? I see Marblehead doing well. I see Hamilton Wenham, boys and girls both doing well. I can see the Peabody girls doing well. What do you see?
It's not, I'm not even sure what, I mean, I see too many divisions. That's what I see. Every one of those divisions has three waves, A, B, C. So like, the former Division Two is Division 1B. It's all very confusing. So I can't wait to look at the results and see where our teams are at. But as far as who's in what division, I honestly don't even really know who's running where. It's really, I think there's too many divisions. It's really hard for fans to keep track of. I mean, as somebody who likes track and is kind of embraced in that world, if I can't figure it out, I don't know how the layman is supposed to figure it out.
Good point. Good
I
point.
know the prep's in 1A, that I can tell you, but
Yes.
that like that some of our bubble teams like a Peabody, a Beverly, a Marblehead, I mean I could see Marblehead being in 1C. I could see them being in 2A. Danvers won one of them last year. I know their boys team's a little bit more top heavy than it was last year, but I mean, if you can get two guys in the top 10, you're going to have a really good finish. So I would say the Danvers boys are another team we should for sure mention that could place really
Winning
high
state champs.
in
Yeah.
whatever division they're in.
All right. We got anything else here, or are you talked out?
I think we're doing well, you
All
know.
right.
We'll try to get another. Hopefully, Jim Montgomery's still the coach of the Bruins when we get our next podcast up. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, yeah. And Celtics rebound from that little gaff against Golden State. I'm sure it's just a blip in the road. Patriots, Bears. I don't know these days. Who knows?
Yeah, Bears.
The Bears, yeah. All right. Give me a weekend prediction. We'll end on that. I'll give you one, you give me one.
Weekend prediction. I will say. What I need a prediction. Geez, a prediction. What can we predict here? I'm gonna go ahead and predict that Steve Sawyer comes home with two state championships.
All right. I saw him the other day and he was feeling good, so he'll really like that. He'll really like that. Um, all right. I'm going to predict, and when I think back on our crystal ball football predictions, we make like three bold predictions.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure at least two of mine worked out. I think I said there'd be two game-winning field goals. I don't think we even come close to that. Two game-winning field goals in the same weekend, I think I said.
Yeah,
So that
well, so it could still happen.
unless that happens in the playoffs. All right, I'm gonna say we see two playoff shutouts tonight in football by
Okay,
our teams.
I can dig it.
Two playoff shutouts. Yeah. 12 hours from now I could be dead wrong, but who knows?
I dig it. I'm digging it.
All right, so we touched on everything. A lot of good stuff here. It's a good weekend. Um, Yours truly and Mr. Williams will take care of all that we can. We'll get out to what we can, and we'll have all of your coverage in the newspaper over the weekend and in the print on Monday. He's Matt Williams. I'm Phil Stacy. This is the Salem News Sports Podcast. Have a great weekend, everyone.